Ladies and gentlemen, dear participants, welcome to today's show of Datenhelden Data Heroes. I'm your host today, Gero Presser, CEO of Datasiders, and we are thrilled to bring you insights from leading experts in the data and AI industry. And today I'm very happy to introduce John Carey from SAS Institute, a leading global provider of data and AI solutions, as you probably all know. John, it's a pleasure to have you with us today. And I would love to start with an introduction. Could you please tell us about yourself, who you are, and can you maybe share a little bit about your career journey and your experience?
Sure thing, and it's lovely to be here, Gero. Thank you for the invite. So John Carey, about 20 plus years in the technology space. The majority of that time I've worked with channel partners. If I'm honest, if there's a mistake you can make in business, I've probably made it. I've been very lucky enough to work with organizations where failing fast has been something that's been encouraged and even celebrated, so long as it's within the context of learning from that and not repeating those mistakes. I'm a husband and a father. I have two teenage boys with widely different personalities. I actually originate from Cardiff in Wales, out of the UK. I've lived in Bristol, London, Schaffhausen in Switzerland. Ich habe 4 Jahre in der Schweiz gewohnt, so ich habe nur ein bisschen Deutsch, aber for this interview, it will be much more successful if we can continue to speak in English. And about 18 years ago, I moved to Florida, and that was with a company called Citrix Systems. And on my career journey, I've always been interested in working with partners to understand the challenges and opportunities that their customers face, and how, as a vendor, with the power of the partner, we're able to really address more of those opportunities, more of those challenges more quickly in a more intimate manner than, if you just take the view of it being a single vendor on their own, trying to do everything for the client in one go.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And now I think you've been with SAS for about 2 years or something like that. And I think that most people are familiar with SAS, but nevertheless, it would be great if you could give us a brief overview about the company.
Sure thing. So I actually celebrated my 2-year anniversary just the other week. And interestingly, SAS was a name that I knew, but didn't know a great deal about until I started looking at the role here. I always thought of SAS as, the largest privately held company. I understood they were dealing with AI. I understood they were very strong in the financial sector. And actually coming into SAS has been a really eye-opening experience, because I think there's SAS that was understood by our original customers, and there's who SAS is now. I mean, it sounds like a cliche to say it, but we're a 47-year-old startup, in that we are retaining all of that great skill and experience that we accumulated over 47 years of solving customers' most complex mathematical problems through the application of AI and the interrogation of data. And now we are a data and AI platform that you can build use cases on across multiple industries, multiple market segments, all with the intent of democratizing access to intelligence, empowering users to make smarter decisions. And so I've been incredibly excited to join SAS at a moment in its history where it's reinventing itself for future generations, but it's doing it in a very thoughtful way that retains that knowledge and domain expertise. And an example being, we talk about generative AI in the marketplace right now, huge hype cycle. And when I first came to SAS, I had people saying, do you mean neural networks that we were working on 20 years ago? And so it's kind of humbling to meet people who were working on what we now think of as generative AI before the convergence of mass access to cloud compute and significant digitized data. So you're dealing with an organization that was thinking about those outputs and business use cases, from the ground coming up. And so this latest kind of what feels like a leapfrog in technology is actually just another step along the road that we've already been traveling as a company. And so, very well positioned to help clients think through the impacts of generative AI, where it's useful, where it may not be useful, and how to manage generative AI to avoid hallucinations, but more importantly for us, have an ethical framework to engage with clients on their AI journey so that we understand the value of how to weight data appropriately so as not to kind of repeat historical data issues where we've maybe not represented certain demographics or certain geographies as effectively as we could have. So, little more than an elevator pitch and very much flavored with my experience, but I think it's an amazing company. It's poised to do amazing things, and the things I love, it's people oriented, it's focused on the customer, and it has a very realistic view of what the technology can do based on decades of working in this space.
Yeah. That's very interesting. Company that is really decades in this space. And talking about the market, data and AI, I think you already mentioned Gen AI. It's a very hot topic, but the whole market of data and AI is very important and becoming more and more important even in the future. I think. What's your take on this? What excites you about this market, and why did you choose to go into this particular field, data and AI?
So you mentioned it, right? So data is the cornerstone to innovation and growth, and transforming data into intelligence via AI is a huge opportunity. And it requires developed thinking to ensure that we're considering ethical representation of historical data in driving socially accurate intelligence. So there's a lot of spin right now about generative AI being an easy button. There's a lot of fear because generative AI is probably the first disruption of automation into the white collar worker space. When I can run a generative AI prompt and see a summary of the channel programs of Microsoft, which 10 years ago I would have paid a consultant, $5,000 to $7,000 to compile for me on a 2-week engagement, right? And I can get that pretty efficiently summarized in, less than a minute. And if I don't like the way it's written, I can have it rewritten as if it's an executive summary. So I think those things are happening. That's exciting, right? If you're going to be disruptive, I want to be in the disruptive wave. If you're going to be building something new, it's got to be by reframing data in an ethical framework. So those are the things that excite me. Even with all of the concerns and potential risks, working with ethically oriented companies to understand how to apply the AI and generative AI use cases to successful outcomes with socially responsible frameworks is something that the more and more I looked at it, the more and more I was excited by it. And it felt like its moment was now. I mean, I'm, been around for a while. Data is accumulating at an incredible pace. When I think about, I have 2 teenage sons, the number of photographs of their first 5 years of life, which I now get daily reminders of from my Microsoft OneDrive account. So I'm reliving their first couple of years day by day with snapshots of, here's so many photos from the past, are immensely greater than the number of photos of my childhood, which was immensely greater than the number of photos of my parents' childhood. And so we've hit that point where we're measuring and documenting everything in a data format that is just right to be interrogated to help us identify new insights, unearth new opportunities and new innovation that we can deliver alongside our clients.
Okay, thank you. And I have a question regarding SAS, because you mentioned the company is, I think, 47 years old, which is incredible. And data and AI is a very fast-moving market. How is it possible to stay market leader or in this position for such a long time? I think there's plenty of innovation that you you had to develop within the company. And how is it possible to be a leader for such a long time? Basically, that's the question.
So with 2 years experience at the company, I can say it starts at the top of the organization,
Mm.
and it's about, you know, a myopic focus on people, outcomes, and curiosity, right? We probably have a culture that is constantly dissatisfied with where we are and looking to improve. We have a leader, our CEO and the founder of the company, Dr. Jim Goodnight. Um, he was at our most recent event demoing our latest innovation. This is a hands-on founder leader who is involved in coding and testing our latest release. That boundless curiosity, that focus on the next thing that we can do. I mean, sometimes it can be challenging, right? When you're a large vendor in a large business and you have a large group of employees, you might want to make a safe bet, right? You might want to say, well, let's solidify this and focusing on that and monetize it. What I've seen is SAS has the capability to both do that while not giving up or sacrificing that innovation hub. And so, and all of that innovation has come, we're not a big acquisition company, right?
Mm.
It's homegrown innovation, it's homegrown value. And only when we see a real need, something truly unique, has there been a decision to acquire innovation into the organization. And so I think that's the thing that probably sets SAS apart for me, is it's from the top, it's people oriented, it's curiosity driven, and it's a fundamental dissatisfaction with the status quo, knowing that there's a better way to get to that answer that's more efficient, more effective, and drives more value for the client.
Okay, thank you for this answer. Yeah, and there's something I wanted to ask you. You also already mentioned this ethical framework, and I think talking of AI bias is always a problem especially in machine learning. Um, I think you have some very innovative ideas and frameworks to address this problem. How do you do this? What's your solution for bias, or what is the foundation of this ethical framework?
So the first thing I would say is everyone should listen to Reggie Townsend, who I am going to attempt to summarize some of the amazing content that he's created around this subject. The concept is our ability to understand the data and to be able to highlight inconsistencies from a framework of social or ethical perspective, and then provide the tools to be able to adjust the models to accommodate for that. So, I look in the mirror, I'm demonstrably the norm, right, within the data set, but I am not demonstrably the norm within society, nor have I been for a very long time. But I would say right now, most data models give a greater weight to data associated with my demographic. Okay, English speaking, educated, white, and male. Knowing that and being able to dial that down and dial up the data sets that represent other demographics to a level that allows us to have a more representative data fabric means that when we run our models, our algorithms, and look to our outcomes, we should see better, fairer, more ethical outcomes being driven by the data. Even down to our release with Snowflake of SAS Data Maker, so our work on synthetic data, how to add data in synthetically that allows us to, fill in the gaps we've got by modeling data up so that we can be more balanced. So you don't always have to dial down. Sometimes you can add in. And I'll go back to my earlier point, what makes SAS the market leader in this space, and that curiosity, that relentless dissatisfaction. Just because we have a framework to do it doesn't mean we're done. We're continually interrogating that framework. We're continually testing the results. The whole point of, and Brian Harris, our CTO, says this all the time. The thing he's the most disappointed about is the models developed, designed, and prioritized that never get promoted to production. Okay, so you do all this great work to get to a great answer, and the value of that model decays over time. So you want to get it out there, and then you want to keep it fresh by rerunning the model on the data, and that data being through this ethical framework. So our objective is be ethical with a framework that can be adjusted over time, and then get to these outcomes that you are constantly refreshing, so that you don't rest on your laurels or get lazy about legacy data-driven models. You're always on the most current. So you're feeding that data model, you're improving that model tournaments. These are all, things embedded in the platform as standard that we feel are critically important for clients to be successful as they go forward.
Okay, got it. Thank you. It's an incredible approach, and definitely something very important. That's what we also see with our customers in Germany. Talking about customers, Germany, companies like ours, I would next like to address partners with you in the role of the ecosystem. Obviously, software is increasingly sourced from the cloud, so in a way, one could maybe say that we do not need partners anymore. What do you think about this? Is there an important role for partners, and which is, or why are they important? I think they still are. So I'm expecting a positive answer.
Yeah, I won't bury the headline. We need partners now more than ever.
Great.
Okay, and when I say we, not just we vendors, customers do. Because I think this is the interesting thing that I've noticed in my career, right? On a 5-year cycle, we see something happen in market, and the general comment is, partners will no longer be required. The customers will only ever deal with the vendors, and it just doesn't recognize the reality of the space, the industry, and the customer need. Partners have massively evolved in terms of the value profile that they provide to customers, and they've done it at a faster rate, in my opinion, than any vendor. Okay, they continue to put their intimacy within the customer account, their understanding of the local knowledge and the local market, their ability to address more than just the single need that one vendor may be looking at. The ability to be that single throat to choke and that central point. I mean, certain data points are a huge amount of cloud transactions through the big cloud providers are actually through third parties, they're resellers. So yes, we might be moving transactions to the cloud, but the fundamental relationship between the customer, the partner, and the vendor is not changing. In fact, the vendors that continue to embrace partners are being the most successful because they get the operational efficiencies of moving transactions to a cloud-based model without losing the engagement and the commitment to the client that their partners can provide at, frankly, a much lower cost of sale than it would be to try and do it as a vendor. So we continue to be committed to partners. I think the industry continues to need partners in a big way. More so than anything else, customers continue to need trusted advisors who can help them navigate their journey and understand what needs to happen all the way along to actually realize the outcome, right? That goes from, the concept, understanding what the transformation journey is going to look like, how you get your data in order, when you execute the purchase of the data and AI platform, how then you start your model tournaments, what the pace is to promote them, all of those things. Sure, a customer could do that individually, but that's a significant investment that a customer needs to make. Whereas multiple customers working with one partner are going to get the benefit of that expertise without the cost profile of bringing it in-house. So those fundamentals haven't changed, and frankly, partners continue to innovate faster than anyone else in the space by continuing to be closer to where their customers' needs are and are going to be than any single vendor. So I'm all in on partners, and that's never going to change.
Okay, that's good news. Thanks. I like this answer. Now, I know that you talk to quite a lot of partners, and you listen to these partners, and you talked and listened to customers. And I'm very curious, do you see some patterns? What makes customers or companies successful with data and AI, and what are the challenges? Do you see any patterns, any recommendations?
Yeah, and again, I'll caveat the patterns that I see are based on, the conversations I've had and the 2 years with SAS, but my 20-year career. And really those patterns are, the fundamental goal of a customer wanting to spend less time operating their business and more time developing their business. So, used to call it the run versus grow equation, right? Less time and cost running the business, more time and spend growing the business has not changed. And they're constantly looking for ways to innovate towards grow, right? So one of the things I see there is they lean more heavily on expertise coming from outside of their organization year after year after year after year. If you think about the fact that pre the cloud, a unique selling point for a customer data center, optimizations within the data center, the quality of the staff they had supporting the data center, and then you had all of the applications and workloads that operated in that data center. Well, now they've outsourced all of that knowledge and expertise to cloud providers, to other hyperscalers, to third parties to perform it on their behalf. And so that continues to be the case where they look at what's important to their business growth, and then they look to the channel community and to vendors to give them solutions that they can rely on the outcomes of and spend less time building and operating themselves. Fundamentally, I don't think that equation has changed. I think it continues. I just think generative AI has brought that question right to the fore, and it has, executives across the board re-examining, can this help me reduce my operating costs? Can it help me deliver new growth opportunity within my business?
Okay, thank you. Basically my last question, in fact, is a little bit outlook into the future, since you are working for a leading data and AI software provider. You probably have deep insights. What do you think does the future hold on for the data and AI market, or how does our interaction with data evolve, or does it change? Is it all about ChatGPT, or what do you think?
Yeah. So I've got a couple of thoughts on this one. The first one I really like is the way our CTO Brian Harris refers to generative AI as that kind of last mile in the process. When I think of ChatGPT, it's changing the way we interface with computers. All right. I no longer have to go to a dashboard. I can go to, a chat and punch a question in and get a result out. Right. So it can have an interesting interactive experience about how I'm consuming the output of data and AI. And I think that's really exciting. And I'm really pleased that I think the hype cycle on generative AI has been a lot skinnier than other hype cycles. I've lived through a couple of these, right? And some of these can last for years. We lent in heavily on generative AI as the kind of easy button to solve all problems. And now everyone's having a much more meaningful conversation about when is it useful and what problem can it truly solve? And ultimately, what has to happen for generative AI to deliver value in the value chain? So then I come back to data continues to grow. compute continues to be more and more democratized and available at a lower cost. So the TCO for getting access to the outcomes of AI is, decreasing, which means it's becoming available to more and more of the market. And so I think there's a real opportunity for us to see a whole new set of innovation and, knowledge roles, knowledge jobs emerge as we lean in on this data and AI journey. It's that kind of, it's the things that we don't know. We often think of unintended consequences and we think of them through the negative lens, right? Are we going to see disruptions in the workforce? But there are unintended consequences that have a positive lens. If I go back to, growing up, and I am, later in the curve of the working life, computers weren't ubiquitous when I was at school, right? Now my children spend more time on a touch screen graphical interface to be able to generate code and outcomes when I would have had to start with punch cards, right? Or learning BASIC or COBOL or Pascal. So you think about that range of innovation that has occurred. I think we're on the next big wave of that. Prompt engineering, those kind of roles. How to address ethical frameworks within data, within analytics platforms. How to be able to adjust those, for optimized outcomes without sacrificing the fundamentals of the ethical framework you want to operate within, how to minimize hallucinations. All of those things become really interesting and create new, broader opportunity. And I think, we're seeing it right now. Conversations about, do I need a skills-based workforce or an educated, certified-based workforce? How important will a university degree be versus a qualified, documented skill in prompt engineering, right? And will that open up a lot more knowledge worker jobs for parts of our community that have felt excluded from accessing that? We've always had conversations around STEM. I think the future makes that even more exciting as STEM becomes more accessible across multiple skill sets and not just the kind of, remit of the traditional educational sector experience.
Okay. Thank you very, very much, John, for these insights. It was really a pleasure talking to you. And many thanks to all our participants today for taking the time to join us. We hope you find the session also valuable and look forward to seeing you next time. So goodbye and take care. Thank you.
Thank you, Gero. It's been a pleasure.